And maybe 6 months after that podcast, we started buying Bitcoin. And I went to my customers and said, we're going in this direction, but you couldn't get your Bitcoin out of it and have a non-taxable event. Businesses, publicly traded, who are going to spend a ton of money shooting at them in the midterms. So I do think it gets done. And it probably gets done even before, McHenry said Memorial Day. I actually think it gets done before that.
Scaramucci reminds us that we've been through this before. Former SEC Chairman Gary Gensler, whom Scaramucci calls the worst ever, did everything in his power to block the Bitcoin spot ETF. He lost the lawsuit, then used his final power play to make the ETF cash in, cash out only, preventing a non-taxable event for Bitcoin holders. It was a spiteful move. Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space, and drop your comments and observations in the comment section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
Hear me out for a second. When you're telling the international community that you're going to invade Greenland, and you are putting troops in Vermont and training for a Greenland invasion, and those troops are hiring lawyers because they're like, okay, we're going to be going up against a NATO country, which is actually a violation of a congressionally sanctioned treaty, and they're now talking to lawyers. So if the president tells me to go attack Greenland and we're allies with Greenland, what do I do? I don't think we should be doing that. That's just me. I don't think we should be doing that. And it does blow back into the industry because you guys say, well, how is that related to Bitcoin and the Clarity Act? Let me tell you how it's related. His adversaries look at that and say, okay, I'm not going to give Trump a win. Okay, look at what he's doing in Greenland, or look at how he's doing this. And so I'm going to vote against or stall the Clarity Act. Now, I don't know your opinion about the Trump coin, the Melania coin, but I said last year that stuff hurts us. Doesn't help us, because I think he took $700 million out of that, according to the Wall Street Journal. And I think people look at that and say, okay, probably shouldn't be doing that as the president of the United States. And so guess what they did? They put all these bells and whistles in the Clarity Act to prevent that, right? And that slowed down the act. And since he brought it up, I have an 11-day PhD in Washington scumbaggery, so I can tell you how these guys operate, okay? You got to get something done, because if you get something done, then you'll get no action letters, and then you'll get amendments. And let me give you a perfect example of this. Gary Gensler, who I think, and I was here 2 years ago, and I said he was the worst SEC chairman ever. He blocked the Bitcoin Cash ETF, lost the lawsuit, and then he did something that he had the power to do. He made it impossible to put your Bitcoin into the ETF. And then if you were going to take profits, you had to take cash out of it. You couldn't get your Bitcoin out of it and have a non-taxable event. That was absolutely ridiculous, but he did that despite the industry, because he was anti this industry. But let me say something. We got the ETF done. And so what did Paul Atkins do? He went back in there and he put the amendments on it to allow for that. We now have a staking Solana ETF, a staking Ethereum ETF. You've got to start with Washington and just get something done. And so my last point on this, because I've talked to several Democrats in the House and our two senators, Schumer and Gillibrand, they want the deal done. They do not want to go up against Fair Shake and the corporate crypto businesses, publicly traded, who are going to spend a ton of money shooting at them in the midterms. So I do think it gets done. And it probably gets done even before, McHenry said Memorial Day. I actually think it gets done before that. I only met him one time, and this is going back 2005. He was very sick. He was at the Sun Valley Conference making a presentation, and he said something there that I think about all the time. He said, do you know who shot the iPod? And he answered the question himself. He said, I did. I shot the iPod. The iPod was the best-selling product in Apple's history up until that moment. But he knew that that was going to fit inside of a smartphone. And he knew that by shooting it, he was advancing his company. So there was a group of people sitting around and saying, no, don't do that. There's a tremendous amount of revenues in the iPod. he said, no, I'm going to shoot the iPod, I'm going to put it in the iPhone, and it's going to eventually increase the sales of the iPhone. And I think we did that with our business. I looked around. Anthony came to see me when I left the White House. We did a podcast together. And I think you remember the podcast. I was doing a lot of work on Bitcoin. And maybe 6 months after that podcast, we started buying Bitcoin. And I went to my customers and said, we're going in this direction because this is the future. And a lot of people wouldn't do that. And I'm going to tell you who's not doing that right now. That's the banks. So the banks, I'm going to give this analogy to you guys. The banks are the cab companies. And Brian Armstrong and Coinbase and Tether, they're Uber. Okay, they're coming in, they're going to eat their lunch. And they've got a choice. They can adopt and they can improve their functionality and increase their competitive advantages and use the marketing they have to move their business to shoot their iPod. Or they can go to their lobbyists in Washington and say, do everything you can to stall this technology and don't let stablecoin holders have yield on their stuff because we have a lot of money and you guys in Washington are influenced by money. And so we're going to take the lazy way out and not compete with these guys. And so for me, these are very hard things to do. Okay, I got lit up. I got torched by 2 wirehouses. I think then Bitcoin went down. I think there was like 2 financial obituaries written about me. The New York Post had me like Tyrion Lannister, right? You're not allowed to say midget anymore, but that's literally what I looked like. I was like sinking in a Bitcoin boat, and they had me dying.
Front cover.
And you've been in my office. The clowns in my office like made a big poster of this stupid thing. I have to look at it every day. And
it's only funny because he came back.
Yeah, but no, they trust me. They were making it at 17,000. They put the big poster up, but I'm bringing it up for a reason because you have to make the tough decisions, and you have to look to the future. You can't sit in your business. One more. I know we're going to run out of time, but one more quick story. Jerry Yang, who the older people in this room will probably remember, he's the founder of Yahoo. So he was 22 years old, and he was cold calling Pacific Bell, which doesn't exist anymore yet. And he finally got a meeting with 2 VPs at Pacific Bell, and he drove his like Volkswagen Rabbit to their offices in San Francisco. He said, I have this really cool thing. I created this search engine. I'm a young kid. I called it Yahoo. And let me show you how it works. And you type in the name, you type in Anthony Pompliano, it'll spit out the person's number, pizzeria or something. And I want to sell this thing to you guys. And they looked at him and said, look, we don't want that thing. What we do is we chop down 4 million trees and we make paper and we dye that paper yellow and we take a 3.5 pound book and we drop it off at the house of every one of our customers. And we've been doing that for 95 years and we get a lot of revenue out of that. And we got a lot of advertising in those books. And so get the hell out of our office. Okay. And a lot of people do that. And you don't want to be that. And so we took the hit at SkyBridge. We've been rewarded from taking the hit. It's a more profitable company now, and I think it's a company set up for the future. But you got to be willing to take the hit.
The banks are the iPod. They are the old cab companies watching Uber, Coinbase, and Tether eat their lunch. Instead of shooting their iPod and innovating, the big banks are sending lobbyists to DC to stall. They are fighting to prevent stablecoin holders from earning yield because they'd rather take the lazy way out than compete with a superior technology.
I think I'm worried about the demography. Chuck Grassley, people probably know who he is. He's the senator from Iowa. I think he's like 700 years old. Maybe he's 800 years old. I think George Washington's great-grandfather. He's been in the Congress for, I don't know, since the origin of the country. He'll be in the Congress. I mean, we're going to leave the country to like Keith Richards and Willie Nelson and Chuck Grassley, right? And I'm worried about that because there's a group of people older than us, okay? And even, I'm older than you, Anthony, but I'm talking about people in their 70s that are still running money and they're maybe taking their supplements or their stem cells, whatever the hell they are. They're going to be living forever and they like gold and they like silver and they hate this industry. Now, you're here in the room and you like the industry and you're probably like, why the hell do they not like this industry? This industry is the future, but this is how people think. And so if you said to me at the beginning of the year that we were going to have fear of currency debasement. We were going to have the big, beautiful spending bill, layer on additional, nothing's going to stop this train, Lynn Alden type deficit spending and money printing. And you said to me that we were going to have this sort of tension in the global geopolitical environment. And you said gold was going to be up and silver was going to be up, but Bitcoin's going to be down. I would have bet that all day long. And of course, I did bet that, and reflected by my balance sheet performance and our hedge fund performance. And so why did that happen? There's some reasons. Maybe there's a big whale that decided to sell. Maybe somebody got hit and margined out on October 10th. But the real reason is that the richest people are the oldest people, and they don't like the industry. And so we need that 35-year-old capital allocator to be 45 and then 55, and you're going to see this thing really pop. But I think it's going to take a while because of that. That's probably my biggest worry about the industry.
Will you tell us about your politics podcast? This is a monster that you've built.
So, I mean, it's sort of a fluky thing. I do a podcast with a British woman by the name of Caddy Kay. She's on Morning Joe, if you guys watch that show. And she's a very polished 30-year veteran of the BBC. And so we have a 3 times a week, 30-minute podcast called The Rest is Politics US, which is it's the #1 political podcast in the UAE, Australia. It's #3 in the UK. So it's very popular overseas. And it's probably the 29th now on Apple and Spotify here.
It's the top 30 podcast in the entire country?
Top 30 in the category of politics.
Oh, okay.
It's top 60 in the category of news. It's probably 150 overall. But I mean, there's 160,000 podcasts in the U.S., so it's a well-performing podcast, and it's fun to do. And listen, I don't like Trump. I think I've been very clear about that. But when he does something right, I also call it for what it is. I said the bombing of Iran, there wouldn't be a lot of flack coming back, and I think it would actually be a positive message in the Middle East. It turned out to be. I'm positive on his direction on crypto. He has a point about Greenland, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying he doesn't. My friend Brad Thor, who is a novelist, he's just published a book called Arctic Hour. If you read the book, it's a fiction, but he really writes from a national security perspective why we need to have a great national security position in Greenland. But there's ways to go about it. It's the approach, Ian. That's all.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space, and drop your comments and observations in the comment section.